So, welcome back to the Prescription to Travel MD podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Courtney Downes, and I know that you're going to love what we have in store for you on today's episode. We have the pleasure of having Dr. Bonnie Koo here with us. She is a retired dermatologist and founder of Wealthy Mom MD, which teaches financial strategies to successful women. And so, she's here to tell us all about her upcoming conference in Maui and how we can achieve our own financial goals while still living our best rich travel lives. So, welcome to the show, Bonnie.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'd love for you to start by just telling us a little bit about your journey, how you got started practicing medicine, and now you're, this financial educator for physicians. And so,
I was always into science, definitely from a young age. And so I always knew I was going to do something with that. And so I did major in biochemistry at Barnard College and I loved it. And basically it was like, do I go like the scientific pathway or do I go into medicine? And so obviously I chose medicine. I actually started studying for the MCAT. I remember as a senior or whenever you do that. And I think I was taking Kaplan. And then I got a job offer, and so I stopped Kaplan and ended up actually working at Morgan Stanley for 4 years. I didn't work in finance. I think a lot of people think that's where I learned money. Like, I was actually working in their IT department. But obviously, I decided I still wanted to go to medical school, so I took the test, and it's funny, I took the MCAT, and then I still waited a year to apply because it's good for 3 years. I was like, "Oh, what's the rush?" Like, because I knew once I started medicine, that's kinda like what your life will be about. So probably not exactly what you were asking, but I knew I wanted to do dermatology right when I started med school, but I kept an open mind. And actually, I was talking to someone about this recently, but I kept an open mind during clinical rotations. And I remember like doing, I guess it must have been surgery. It was in the OR. And I immediately crossed out anything that had to do with the OR. So that included all surgical fields and anesthesia because it was too freaking cold.
well, that would be enough to sway me too. So,
Yeah. So that was my path. And then in a nutshell. And then in terms of the business, like that was completely unexpected. I'm assuming yours was not like planned as well, kind of like you stumble upon it and it somehow turns into a business. That's kind of like my general story. I can go into more details if you like.
well, I love that you just took a less traditional path to get to medicine. And so, I'm always interested in hearing people's stories because a lot of us just go, you do your 4 years of undergrad, you go to med school, you do residency, and then it's like, what next? And so I think when you have all these other little things that are sprinkled in, it gives you a broader view of the world and all the things that are out there. So even though you didn't know that Morgan Stanley was going to take you to, Wealthy Mom MD, maybe like subconsciously it was sitting there telling you like, hey, this can be for you.
Yeah, I think the one thing that working there helped me with is my identity wasn't 100% tied up in being a good student. And so I saw a lot of my classmates just put so much on getting good grades, or it was pass fail, but you know what I mean? And I just wasn't like that. And so I often tell people, and I'm not lying, like I didn't think med school is that hard. I don't mean it wasn't hard academically, but like I just feel like a lot of people seem to have a miserable experience and I did not have that. Not that there weren't parts that were miserable, but I didn't feel like it was this traumatic experience that was super hard.
And I think I kind of share that sentiment. I mean, I feel like it was hard, but I feel like I had a lot more fun in med school than I did even like in undergrad because I think in undergrad you're working so hard to get there. And then med school is like, okay, I'm finally here. I just have to study and take the test and then, just do the work and you'll get there. And even like entrepreneurship isn't like that at all. Like if you don't put in the work, it's not going to be like a straight easy path. It's not like laid out for you like going to work in the ER every day. If I go to work and I, do the right thing.
You get paid.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of us are looking at other ways to build wealth because, I guess, for a number of reasons, but it's always nice to have a backup and to know that you're not completely dependent on your clinical income. And I think you show a lot of women physicians how that's possible. So kind of brings us into Wealthy Mom MD. So tell us a little bit about how that got started.
Yeah, and that was like an accident, not planned at all. I think I was learning about money for myself because I was not educated and I just started like sharing bits and pieces with my friends and then helping people in Facebook groups. And so again, I just was doing it because I was learning and just sharing information. And honestly, one thing just led to another. Someone's like, you should start a blog. I was like, why? And I was like, okay. And because of my tech background, slapping up a website was not challenging for me. Like it just slapped it up in like less than a day type of thing. And then I started to meet some of the other physicians who do personal finance. So the White Coat Investor, Passive Income MD, like Jim Dolly, the White Coat Investor, like he had started before me. He was kind of the first on scene. And then I started meeting, there was a small group of physicians who were kind of in this field. And it was just really fun hanging out with them. We would go to FinCon. That's kind of the financial conference that open to everyone. It's not just for physicians. And it was just kind of a fun time. And again, I was making some money, but I just thought about it as like a hobby that made some money and it was fun. And then at some point, it was actually after I had my son, I had really bad postpartum anxiety and, I was working obviously. And I was like, what the heck am I doing? Like, I don't need a side gig. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just kind of like, what the heck? And again, I wasn't feeling so great emotionally. And so it really could have gone either way, to be honest, Courtney. Like, I could have just been like, nope, just gonna be a dermatologist and work on my family or do it. And it's obviously I chose the other option. And I was working with a life coach and, just started doing stuff and charging money is really what it came down to. And learning how to build and run a business, right? Because those are skills that you don't have unless you learn it.
Yeah. And so tell me about that. Was that another thing that was sort of easy for you to do or just kind of fell into your lap and ran with it?
So I did a lot of personal development work when I was in my early 20s. And so I was already kind of used to investing in myself. And my coach had done some business courses. So I just dived in. I literally spent my first year taking a lot of courses on business. So how to build an email list. That was Amy Porterfield. I took Marie Forleo's B School, which is kind of like a little bit of everything. And then I went right into Stu McLaren's membership course. I don't have a membership though. And then I attended 2 conferences that year. Kajabi had a conference. They've never done it since because it was before the pandemic. And I think since the pandemic, they just decided not to do it. Maybe they've done a virtual one. And then Amy Porterfield had a conference. So I went to that. And so I was just immersed learning, connecting with other entrepreneurs. And so I learned so much in that. Like, I kind of think of that as my little business internship, if that makes sense. And so that's how I learned. It didn't even occur to me, Courtney, to try to do it myself. But I know a lot of early entrepreneurs do that, and I don't know why they do that.
You're like, take the shortcut. I think someone said it's like basically taking a plane to New York versus taking a bus to New York versus like, running to New York. Like,
Yeah, it's like, why would you try to learn the skills yourself when you're not an expert?
yeah, especially when you have the path laid out for you, it can definitely make your journey shorter and a lot easier. And so you do that for others as well, right?
Oh, I haven't yet. It's definitely like on the list of things I want to do. Like I'm still sort of figuring out, like it's still percolating, like what would that look like? Would it be a course? I mean, it'd be part course, but like, is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Like I'm still figuring that out. It is fun to think about, but also scary because I'm so used to kind of doing the same thing. So even though I know I can teach it well, it's still the same fears, Courtney. Are people going to pay me for this?
But they have, and I know so many of my colleagues who have benefited from your listening to your podcast and joining your program. And so I don't know the ins and outs of your program, but I'm sure there are people who listening who may be considering becoming involved in Wealthy Mom MD. So what can they expect if they do join your program?
Yeah, well, the only program I have available is a personal finance program. And so the other program I'm thinking about, or some arm of my business, would be actually helping like early entrepreneurs who specifically want to build a course or an online business. So definitely not brick and mortar or product based, but whether it's coaching or a course or some form of that. So that's what I want to do next. And I do host a conference. I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it again. I did one this year and then I booked the one in 2025 before. And because I sold it at the next conference, but actually that conference went really well. And so I was pumped. I loved planning it. I loved delivering it. But this is a bigger conference. Like I kind of increased the attendance and nothing crazy. It went from like 55 to I think 125 is our max capacity. But it's less about the work. It's more about the financial risk because the costs of delivering a conference are so high. And so this is just a business thing in general. Is like you have to understand people focus too much on the top line, but you also have to look at the bottom line, like what do you actually take home? And with a conference, you take home very little. A lot of conferences barely break even. When I say break even, I just mean the hard costs, which means they basically did it for free. You know what I mean? Paying the hotel and all these, like we have a lot of payments that are coming up because the conference is in February and it's just watching money leave the bank.
Wow, I hear that it's a lot of work, and I remember we were at PIMDCon together, and we were kind of talking about it, and I was telling you about all my big hopes and dreams of like planning this conference and planning these group trips, and you're like, yeah, it's a lot of work, and I was like, huh.
The work part is going to be fine. Like again, why would you do it yourself? You should hire an event planner or at least consult with one because there's all these things you wouldn't know. And then obviously you need an assistant. So honestly, most of my time has been the fun part is like curating the experience, finding the speakers. Like that part's easy. And then obviously I'm mainly the marketing and selling strategist. And then my assistant kind of, posts things for me, but it still kind of leans on me, right? And so that's the hard part of any business is marketing and selling.
Well, I've heard great things about your first conference, so I'm sure that this one is gonna be just as amazing. You wanna tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so it is a money and wellness conference for women physicians. Actually, today I spent some time answering some messages because, dentists are like, well, can I come? I've had nurse practitioners reach out to me, and I would say it's appropriate for anyone who identifies as a high income earning female health professional. And the reason why I say that, not that you have to be, but some of the talks are kind of geared towards people in clinical practice. Although I think anyone could get anything out. There's like one talk in particular that I think wouldn't be as applicable because we're talking about how physicians can get involved in private equity and startups. Although that's applicable for a lot of fields too, right? Because startups need a lot of different types of experts. So that's sort of who it's for, and I am really excited about the group I curate. So it's money and wellness, and not that I don't get excited about the money stuff, but it's like, there's a finite amount of topics, but for the wellness part, like one thing I'm actually really excited about is I have Dr. Shiva Gofrani. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but she's OBGYN actually, and she is really big on social media educating women about women's health, perimenopause and menopause, and I'm sure you've noticed it's kind of like a burgeoning topic. And I think it's just so important for women to understand how their bodies are different and what things we have to do to keep being healthy. Because it's different that we're obviously physiologically different than men. We're all going to undergo menopause. And most people think of menopause as like, oh, that happens over 50. But perimenopause starts several years before that. Like if you're 35, it's something you need to know. And even when you're younger, I think it's like you have to understand like how the declining estrogen affects your bone health and muscle health and all this other stuff, and so it's just being armed with information, so I think that's gonna be really valuable because I think it is a huge gap in what women need to know about themselves, and there's obviously other great topics in terms of wellness, and obviously, Dr. Devin Gimbel, she'll be speaking at my conference as well. I hope you can come.
Yeah, I would love to.
February 20 to 23.
I'm, like, trying to work out my schedule now as we were planning a trip to Singapore and to the Maldives, like, around the same time.
I know you're always out of town.
It's really nice just being able to travel and being able to go, but then, like, I really do have to, like, plan my life a year in advance now because I have, like, so many trips that I, like, book up, and then it's like, "Okay, well, this is coming up. Let me see how I can squeeze that in," and then, you make it work, though. You figure it out.
Where do you live again?
I'm in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Vegas to Hawaii. They call Vegas
The ninth island or something, or
yeah, I know there's more than 4 islands in Hawaii, but in terms of the main islands.
yeah, that's us. We have a lot of Hawaiians here. Yes, yes, and we love Hawaii too, so we went to Maui. Well, I guess it was last year we were there, and so
Oh, this is on Oahu.
oh, you're in Oahu. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's at the Four Seasons Oahu, so obviously that's always nice. But as I'm sure you know, there's no way to use points in a great way with the Four Seasons. You have to use, like, just straight points currency, which obviously isn't the best redemption, but if you're swimming in points, by all means, use points.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's funny because I was trying to figure out how we could go and visit Alani, and I didn't necessarily wanna stay at Alani.
Oh, it's right next door, obviously, do you know that?
Yeah, so but for some reason, I was thinking it was in Maui, so it's in Oahu, and it's right next door to Alani, so if you want to go.
Yeah, so actually, my family is coming the week of the conference. So the conference starts on a Thursday, so we're arriving Sunday, and I booked us for Olani that week. I always rent DVC points. I'm sure you know about that
Mhm.
because it's cheaper and you can get like a one-bedroom villa. I'm putting in air quotes 'cause it's just a one-bedroom suite. I don't know why they call it a villa, but it is nice because it comes with a washer and dryer,
Yeah.
which, as you know, is key when you have kids. Even if it's just for 3 days, it's like laundry is valuable, and they leave on Friday, so they leave the day, that the main sessions start. Because obviously it's just I'm not gonna be able to hang out with them anyway, so I figure just leave them at Olani, and then I move over to the Four Seasons, I think, on Thursday.
So any Disney Alani fans or anyone who's interested, that might be a great time to plan your trip around. You can go and get some information and knowledge to arm yourself with and go take your kids over to visit Alani, beforehand, so
Yeah, it's our 3rd time there. I think it's the first time that Jack's old enough to go use the kids club there, so that'll be fun.
and this is your first time at the Four Seasons, or
No, I've been there many times, I love it. I actually hosted a small retreat in 2022, it was just 10 women, and I've stayed there personally probably 3 other times. I just really like it, it's like once we get to know a place, it's kinda nice to go back to the same place. It's funny because I feel like most people wanna go to new places, and of course, I like that too, but there is something nice about going somewhere that you already know and have a relationship with. Like, it's nice every time I go, they're like, "Welcome back, Doctor Koo."
like, back again, now I'm bringing all my friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And so, yeah, so you said you can't use points to book a room at the Four Seasons, but it is a good points earning opportunity.
Yeah, well, for sure.
And I know you mentioned using points before, and I've heard you speak at some of the conferences and talk about using points earning as a way to travel. So, what are some of your pointers or tips that you have for others who are interested in the points game or interested in getting started, but also wanting to balance that with like being financially responsible and making, good decisions?
Yeah, so obviously, we're not telling people to get credit cards and go into credit card debt. Although I understand it can be easy because it is easier to spend when you have credit cards, so I am mindful of that. And obviously, I mean, I think you're a points expert as well. But, I teach points like 101 and maybe 102 in my program and just in my content in general. And so I just feel like you should earn at least 1.5x points for any purchase you have. And ideally, you get more, like 3x or even 4x. And so I have cards, my partner has cards, and his are labeled. So he actually carries some of my physical cards and everything I have on Apple Pay. So, like, everyone takes Apple Pay these days. So it's great. So I can always whip up the right card to use for the points multiplier. And so actually, I just right before our appointment here, I went to PayPal to make sure that the Chase Freedom Flex was linked because it's 5x this quarter, and so I'm getting that ready to also work with Rakuten. I actually don't spend a lot during Black Friday because I'm not a huge gift giver personally, but what I do is I kinda start making a list of things I wanna buy, but it's honestly mostly just stuff that we already use, but there's always a nice deal, so I use Black Friday as an opportunity to stock up, mostly. But if there is any purchases I have in mind and I know like, if it's August and I don't need it, I'll be like, "Okay, I'll just wait for a Black Friday sale," you know?
And I think that's a good point because I think you can be spurred to buy things that you don't necessarily need. One, in the name of points. Two, if there's a good sale, you're like, oh, it's a good sale at Sephora. But it's like, I didn't even need any makeup or anything. So, like, why am I?
Oh, you just remind me I gotta put some makeup on my list that the things I use regularly. Actually, one of my tips for Black Friday, just because everyone knows it's a big spending time, is I'm really big on just people understanding and monitoring their cash flow because that's where most people just don't understand what's happening. What I mean by that is like people don't really have a great pulse on how much money they're spending. They're not reviewing. I review my finances every week, business and personal. So I think it's like having a shopping list at the grocery store. Like, you're not going to forget what you need to buy, but also kind of keeps you on track. And also, I'm sure you've heard, don't ever go grocery shopping when you're hungry because all of a sudden all these things will seem useful and you come home and like, why did I buy all this stuff? I forgot to buy the half and half or whatever, right? And so it's really the same approach for Black Friday is like make a list of the things that you want to buy that's either household items or gifts. I know a lot of people spend money on gifts, but then I also say you kind of want to have an idea of what that would cost, right? And then I'm just like, have a budget for just impulse spending. You know what I mean? Because I think people think of budgeting as this really restrictive sort of tool, but have like a line item, just like I can spend whatever it is, like $2,000 on whatever the heck I want. Because you are going to see something during Black Friday that you're going to want. And then you're going to feel like it's restrictive since you don't have that money set aside. You know what I mean?
I think early on, budgeting was like really important to me. But then when you realize that you don't necessarily like have to budget and you can just kind of close your eyes and like not pay attention to things and pretend that they go away.
Well, here's the analogy I have for that, because that's a really especially when you're a high income earner, right? Because, like, you're not worried about running out of money to pay for your regular bills, like, you can, quote, unquote, "afford it." But and so a lot of people my friends are like, "Well, at some point, I could stop looking at my spending." I'm not saying you always have to look at it, but think of a company like Amazon. Do you think they stopped looking at their finances carefully? Can you imagine them saying, like, "Oh, we're making so much money, let's spend whatever we want on marketing?" Like, they actually look at their finances more often. And so the reason why I say that is because ultimately cash flow is you want to understand what's going in and out because, a spending plan, that's what I like that word but better than budget. It should be designed to help you live the life that you want and reach your goals. So like if you look at your spending and you're spending all this money on stuff that you're just like, what the heck? I can't believe $1,000 every month is just going on to stupid crap. And you have some financial goals with investing, then that's where you're gonna wanna make some decisions around that, right? And so if you actually plan your spending plan relatively carefully, like, you actually can start really curating living the life you want now versus later, because a lot of us are spending thousands of dollars on stuff we don't need, and I'm not judging people for that, but then most people are also like, "But I haven't reached my money goals," right? But your spending plan, how you spend your money is the vehicle it is the way to get there. Part of it, right? Then there's like the making of the money and investing, et cetera. But most people, I think, are surprised. My clients, because they're pretty much all doctors, are usually shocked by how much money goes out. That's just not useful.
Right, right. So before you go out and start spending on Black Friday this weekend, before the weekend is up, make a spending plan and figure out what you're going to budget for that or avoid Black Friday altogether.
Well, I think it's really hard to avoid it unless you just aren't into shopping. But yeah, and then make sure you allow money for just impulse spending. Like, I don't know, you go to Sephora or Target and you go there for like one or two items, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this looks good and this looks good. Like for me, what's on my list is concealer, eyebrow pencil, maybe some lip stuff. Oh, and then CC cream.
And you're like, that's it. I know this is what I want to get. And then you can be done. Or you can be like me and be easily distracted and decide you need a new vacuum cleaner or something else for the house. And there you have it.
I do like my Dysons, and there's usually a good Rakuten deal on Dyson products during
I think that's how we got our Dyson last time.
I love my Dyson vacuum, and I have a Dyson hairdryer. Definitely pricey, but like just really well made, you know?
Worth it.
Yes, exactly, worth it.
And so I think it's also important to be intentional about your spending. So you have a spending plan and you have things that you want, but again, not being impulsive, but knowing that it's okay to spend money, at least that from my perspective. I think I went from completely being like white coat investor, save, 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 budget, 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 keep my old car. And then my husband wasn't on the same page as me. And I think I needed that to realize that like it was okay to live, like it was okay to treat myself to nice things just because I wanted to, but to be intentional about how I do that. And so part of that is treating myself to nice vacations.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love travel. I mean, I've always been into traveling, and because of the business I've created, I get to go to a lot of conferences, mostly as a speaker, and I consider that traveling because usually lately I haven't, just because we moved and we don't have as much childcare help, but I'll almost in the past, I always extended it by a day or two or got there a day or two beforehand. I need a lot of time away from my family to be happy. It sounds weird, but like I do. And but yeah, this year it's been a little bit more challenging, and I'm sort of just getting in right when I have to and leaving right after it ends, because I just don't wanna miss that many days and stuff like that, so
I think absence makes the heart grow fonder, right?
I guess so, yeah. Recovery time as a mom.
And so you travel a lot. So how do you manage like your travel and still be able to meet your financial goals? Do you have a plan for that? Or?
Yeah, well, when I speak, usually that's covered, right? So I'm not really paying for that. Yeah, for the most part, I definitely don't have to pay for room, maybe some meals, and the flight's usually covered, and so that's obviously, like, not a huge cost, just really my time. And then for our personal vacations, we do use the power of points. So next summer, we're going to Spain, and so as soon as I know we were going to Spain, which was August, I booked our business class tickets to Spain because I cannot fly economy for long flight. It's like once you start, you can't, you're just like, I no, I can't do economy anymore. But, I love Air France because you can get really good redemptions, and I'm sure you know this, right? So, yeah, we're flying Air France there, and so I already booked our return tickets. And I was like, "Well, I have to fly through Paris anyway," and I've been to Paris many times, I love it, so I was like, "We'll stop by Paris on the way home," so I booked 3 nights in a hotel already, because popular destinations like Paris, as you know, like, they book up really far in advance, because I do Hyatt mostly, and so I booked that, but yeah, I book my stuff really far in advance, and when I say I mainly book hotels really far in advance, because I'm a globalist for Hyatt, because when you're a global do you stay at Hyatts at all?
I do, yes.
Yeah, so as you know, once you reach globalist, you can place bookings on points without having the points, and so I've used that feature a lot, and then it's easy to cancel. Like, I have something actually, I need to look because I have something booked for Thanksgiving week, and I need to make sure that we're going so that I can cancel before the penalty, but I booked a premium suite in Florida to kinda just, check it out because my son has the whole week off, so I was like, "We need to do something."
Like, might as well, yes. So for those who are listening who don't know what a globalist is, can you tell us a little bit about that and how you earn that status?
All hotels and airlines have a loyalty program. There's, like, different tiers, and so globalist is their top tier. And once you're a globalist, you get lots of perks, you get lots of award certificates, suite upgrades, like, those are definitely, like, key to me. And, you just get special usually nicer treatment, and then breakfast is included. So, between a free hotel stay, being able to stay in a suite, and free breakfast, that's a huge chunk of your travel budget right there, right? I rarely use points for domestic flights just because it's generally not a good redemption, but we went to St. Kitts, I believe, last winter break, and we went there for 7 days over the winter break, and we did 7 days only because there was only direct flights on Saturdays from New Jersey, And I'm so spoiled living in New Jersey, but now I moved to Tampa and now it kind of sucks because a lot of flights are not direct and they're not on airlines I want to fly. So that's something I've had to contend with, if I'm perfectly honest. But yeah, only direct flight is on Saturday. So I'm like, well, I guess we have to stay in St. Kitts for 7 nights. It's like too bad. And then, yeah, and I stayed at the Park Hyatt, which is, one of the more luxurious properties, and booked a regular room, used a suite upgrade. And if I paid cash, Christmas week, they just charge stupid prices. It would have been at least $15,000 if we paid cash for that week. And then the flights were like almost $2,000 a person round trip to St. Kitts from New Jersey, which is like not a long flight. And I was like, I'm not paying that. So I used points because I had a lot of United points. So basically, the only thing we had to pay for were meals, and breakfast was covered. And, breakfast at hotels are stupid expensive, like the buffet, whatever it was. So we still spent a lot of money because meals in St. Kitts are really, really expensive, but still obviously nowhere near what we would have paid if we had to pay for. So I really think of points as like dramatically reducing the spending for each trip, and then also allows me to take more trips. Like, honestly, we would talk to people, and obviously most people aren't using points. I don't know why. I think they just don't know. But then I was like, wow, all these people paid cash, and maybe they got it in advance, so it wasn't 15,000. Well, that was for a suite. So maybe they paid 8,000, but still, that's a lot of money.
I just got back from Costa Rica last weekend, and we went and we were gifted the
At the Andaz,
yes, Andas. Yes, it was an amazing trip.
I heard it's great.
It is. It really is. And so we were there for like 5 nights and just had just a glorious time. And we were guest of honor because we're not globalist, but we were able to take advantage of some of the perks of being a globalist. So the free breakfast and suite upgrades, those type of things. And so that was really nice.
Oh, nice. Did you get upgraded to a suite?
We did. So we didn't get to spend as many days there, but I really wanted to just to be in the suite, just more so I could actually see what was in there. So they were like, okay, well, we don't have it available, first couple of days that you're there, but before you check out. And I was like, all right, I'll take that. So
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah. You just had to change rooms, obviously, but
yeah, yeah. So that kind of worked out. And then by then we were like ready. We were getting packed up, and it made packing, to get back on the plane that much easier because everything was already done.
oh, nice.
So working on getting globalist next year with some of the traveling for work that I'll be doing, and just being able to.
I get it mostly from the credit card spending for Hyatt, my Hyatt business card. Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, so for the Hyatt branded cards, it's through Chase. So they have a business and a personal. I have both, but I primarily use the business and I make sure I spend enough. I mean, I always have planned Hyatt stays, and so I try to guesstimate. Not that it's bad if you overspend on the Hyatt card, but like I don't need to spend beyond 60 nights, right? So I think right now I'm already at 65 nights and I still have quite a few, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 nights that's planned for the rest of the year. And so, yeah, for every $10,000 you spend on the business card, you get 5 nights. And then the personal card is less. I only use the personal Hyatt when I'm staying at Hyatt personally. Like it's the card I put down, when I'm staying for personal stays. But otherwise, I don't really use it.
Okay. And so you need to get 60 nights. Is that right?
60 nights to get globalist is another way. I think you need or 100,000 base points. I don't quite understand how that works, but I find it easier to get this. I've never had 100,000 base points. I think I'm at like 30,000 base points. I don't know how they calculate it, but I'm at 65 nights.
So if I go and get a World of Hyatt business card and a personal card, will that automatically give me nights?
You have to spend a certain amount to get the nights. Yeah, so every $10,000 on the business card gives you equivalent of 5 nights. And I think every $5,000 on the personal card gives you 2 nights. So you get 4 nights per 10,000 on the personal card.
Okay. And then the rest of it you just make up.
So the business card is better to spend if you have a business. I'm actually looking at my account right now because once you reach certain milestones, like certain nights, like I have so many awards. What's nice about Hyatt now is they actually let you gift awards. You were able to gift certain awards, but now you're able to gift a lot more rewards than you have in the past. Like I can gift suite upgrades. Guest of honor, they always gave you, but they're actually a bit more strict. Like it's harder to accrue those now. Oh, actually, no, I take it back. Before guest of honor, you just had to book it for them and use your points. Now, as you can imagine, there were a lot of gifting in that way, but now you have to use a gift of honor award, and you only get a certain amount depending on how many nights you get. So I have 3 right now, and then I have free night awards. So I have 2 of those, and I have 6 suite upgrade awards. And I feel like I've been using so many suite upgrade awards. I just got a bunch of new ones because once you reach globalist, they give you like 3 of those or 2 here or whatever.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm looking forward to having some of those advantages probably not the upcoming year because you have to earn it, and it takes a calendar year to actually, or you have to earn it within the calendar year, correct?
Yeah, so you have until the end of the year to reach global, and then it resets to it's very sad because then in January, it resets to 0 nights.
And then you got to start all over.
Yep. Exactly.
So anyone who's interested in learning more about getting globalist status, I'll probably be doing a podcast episode shortly to talk a little bit more about that. But very cool to see so many people in our community who have achieved globalist status and that they're, being so generous and sharing those awards with some of the others so that way we can kind of see the light.
Yeah, because I don't want any of the awards to expire, and so I do try to, give them away, friends and family, like, I've only given 1 away, and she wasn't a rando, she was someone in my mastermind, but I try to keep them for friends or family, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to see what happens with your upcoming conference, and maybe you'll be so inspired after this one that you'll decide that you do want to have another one.
Maybe, it's funny because I was like, "I'm never doing this again," and I was like, "Oh." But yeah, I think, I'm not gonna commit to one before this conference, and I'll probably have it on mainland. I do think Hawaii makes it a bit more challenging, but I'm just really picky about, like less about it's part of it's, like, location and then the tier of the hotel, because Miraval is Miraval, and then Four Seasons is the Four Seasons, and, like, there aren't that many great hotels on mainland, but I could be wrong. So I wanna do it at a well, Four Seasons isn't a Hyatt, obviously, but Miraval, I got a lot of Hyatt points by hosting it there.
I said Miracle is great, and I'm sure Four Seasons is going to be great too. I've been to Four Seasons, like Big Islands, but I've never been to the one on Oahu. So,
Oh, that's the really nice one too. I haven't been there yet. I actually was looking into having a retreat there, but the cost, even with the discounted room rate, like, it still would have been almost, like, close to $1,000 per night for participants, and not that people wouldn't have been willing to pay that, but,
they might have, but you try to make it like reasonable, or I shouldn't say affordable because it's not necessarily the affordability that brings people to the Four Seasons, right?
no, you don't go there to to stay on a budget, that's for sure.
So, what would you say to someone who's like hesitant to invest in themselves and invest in a retreat such as this?
I know it's different. It's like when you haven't done it, it's sometimes really hard to see the value. As someone who's done this and as just like you, like where we 100% see the value. So I think part of it is like courage and just kind of jumping in. I haven't met anyone who's regretted it. It's possible, but I really like investing in going to a conference. I think that's a great gateway drug, so to speak, because I think I'm not talking about regular medical conferences that are kind of boring, but I just think they're so energizing. You get to really meet new people. I think people are feeling isolated and feeling like they need connection. And so I think it's a great way to get that quickly, and then meet other people like them because I think a lot of us feel like we're the only ones with certain struggles, et cetera. And so I'm talking specifically with my audience, mostly female physicians. And I think it's really nice there's like almost like, so I think a lot of us carry, I don't know if shame's kind of a strong word, but we're carrying, sometimes heavy stuff. And then it's kind of freeing to know you're not the only one, because when you go to a conference or retreats, the people who go there are looking for something. They're looking to change something. And so it is different to be around that type of person.
Well, I think everyone is going to be in for a real treat in addition to getting all of this and having access to such a wealth of knowledge and being at the Four Seasons and being in Oahu. I mean, just all these things that are going to combine to make this a really magical experience for anyone who decides to sign up. How can they reach out to you if they're interested in signing up or learning more about your programs?
So my brand is called Wealthy Mom MD, and so that's my handle on Instagram. That's my website, wealthymomd.com. So obviously the conference information is on my website, but they can obviously reach out to me in the DMs.
Very good. And we'll make sure that we put all that information in the show notes so that way you know how to reach out to Bonnie and get started with her and hopefully sign up for the retreat that's coming up. Thank you so much, Bonnie, for being here with me today. I'm a longtime listener of your podcast. And like I said, I know many of my colleagues have benefited from your podcast and also just being involved in like your coaching programs. And I'm hopeful that many other people will have the privilege of being able to work with you and meet you at the upcoming retreat.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening, guys.